The young boy who is shining shoes will become the wealthiest black person in America. This is based on a true story. His name is Bernard, and he has been shining shoes since he was young to earn a living. He intentionally chooses his work location in front of a bank. However, he wasn't interested in the small amount of money he earned from shining shoes. His goal was to learn the knowledge that white people discussed with each other. The boy recorded everything in a small notebook. This priceless knowledge was what he truly desired. At just 10 years old, he knew that his life's ambition was to become a financial expert. However, it will be difficult because the United States in the year 1939 was a place where black people faced ruthless discrimination. When his father saw Bernard's notebook at home, he was very surprised. But being born with black skin, white people wouldn't allow black individuals to be more successful and smarter than them. However, deep in the boy's determined eyes was an extraordinary resolve to become an outstanding financial expert. 10 years later, the young boy had grown up. He, along with his wife and children, left their hometown and moved to the city of LA to pursue the American dream. He was searching for houses that were up for sale. With his visionary mindset, he discovered that the black neighborhood was densely populated, but there were many vacant houses in the white neighborhood. Bernard saw this as an opportunity and decided to start a real estate business specializing in serving the black community. He found a promising apartment near the black neighborhood. The next day, his wife introduced him to the wealthiest man in the area, Joe, who could potentially help Bernard. However, due to a disagreement in their attitudes, Bernard declined Joe's assistance and walked away. Out of options, he went to meet with the real estate company's director and offered $30,000 for the house. But the director insisted on a price of $40,000. Bernard argues that the apartment was only worth $30,000 and its value can increase after repairs and renovations. However, the director believes that no matter how much renovation is done, no one will rent it. Bernard pointed out that white people might not be interested, but there are opportunities in the real estate market for black people. He offers to pay $30,000 up front and wait until the repairs are completed, at which point many people will come to rent it, and he will pay the remaining $10,000 later. The director finds this hard to believe and thinks Bernard wants to borrow his money to make wealth, so he bluntly refuses. Not staying disappointed for long, he sparks a bold idea in his mind after seeing a promotional calendar from the bank. He goes straight to the bank to obtain the title of real estate director to secure a loan. At the reception desk, he asked to talk with the bank director, but the receptionist deceived him, claiming that the director was not available. Clearly, he can see the director sitting right across from him. He asks the receptionist again, and she repeats that the director is too busy. At that moment, Bernard realizes that it's because of his skin color that the bank doesn't want to meet with him. However, he remains determined and refuses to give up. He waits outside the bank and manages to meet with the director. He quickly expresses his intentions. After a conversation, the director promises to get back to Bernard, and he returns home to await a response. On that evening, Bernard was patiently waiting by the phone, thinking that there might be no hope. Surprisingly, it was the phone of the real estate director. He had discovered that Bernard had impersonated him to secure a loan, but instead of reprimanding him, he surprisingly told Bernard to come the next day to sign the loan agreement. Bernard was incredibly surprised and asked why the director wanted to help him. The director explained that he admired Bernard's courage and determination. He was genuinely pleased, and so Bernard was able to purchase the apartment. During the renovation, Bernard faced discrimination from a woman who had just returned from shopping. She was not happy to see a black neighbor and questioned Bernard about why he was appearing in front of the houses occupied by white people. Bernard explained that he had purchased the apartment, leaving her astonished and in disbelief. She claimed that only white people could own that apartment, and someone with black skin like him couldn't possibly own it. This hurtful remark left Bernard speechless. The next day, the police came to arrest Bernard because the neighbor had reported that a black person was impersonating the owner of the apartment. To prove his ownership, Bernard showed them the real estate certificate for the apartment. After thorough verification, the police confirmed its authenticity and had to leave. In the evening, when Bernard returned to his apartment, he encountered the elderly neighbor telling him that visitors were not allowed after 6 p.m. Bernard calmly corrected her, stating that he was not a visitor but a resident of the apartment. This response angered her. The following day, she moved away, unable to bear the humiliation of living in the same neighborhood as a black person. The final apartment was beautifully renovated and didn't take long to find a tenant. This success changed the real estate director's perspective on Bernard. Soon after, he decided to collaborate with Bernard and invested money to purchase properties in other areas, renovate them, and then sell them for a substantial profit. However, due to Bernard's identity as a black person, All contracts had to be signed in the director's name. Before long, the two of them earned a significant amount of money. Bernard even managed to purchase a spacious mansion spanning thousands of square meters. However, the happiness didn't last long as an issue arose with the director. His wife wanted to sell all of his real estate holdings and buy back Bernard's shares at the lowest possible price. Of course, Bernard refused to agree to this arrangement. Furious, the director's wife quickly turned against him, threatening to take him to court. She made it clear that Bernard would have no standing in this matter, as all the contracts were in her husband's name. In this situation, Bernard turned to the bank director for help, asking him to testify as a witness. However, to his surprise, the bank director refused to assist him. Seeing the mistreated behavior of the bank, Bernard's strong sense of pride and determination led to the bold idea of buying the entire building. However, he knew that he couldn't accomplish this on his own. So, he sought out Joe again. Upon hearing Bernard's plan to become the landlord of the bank, Joe immediately agreed because he too disliked how white people discriminated against black individuals. But they realized that trying to purchase the building with Bernard's identity as a black person would be challenging. Therefore, they enlisted the help of Matt to act as their representative in negotiating the purchase with the bank while they remained in the background, controlling everything. Matt had no background in finance and had never interacted with the upper class. So Bernard and Joe decided to train Matt to become a successful entrepreneur. They began arranging Matt's training, starting with morning golf sessions, followed by learning about real estate and finance throughout the day. In the evenings, Matt experienced a lifestyle filled with exquisite dining and high-quality wines, dressed in upscale attire typical of the upper class. After a month of this training, Matt successfully transformed. With the arrangement of Bernard and Joe, Matt and the owner of the bank building began to develop a friendship. Meeting several times on the golf course and engaging in conversations, they grew closer. Matt eventually discussed his desire to buy back the bank building, leveraging the skills that Bernard had trained him in. Matt succeeded in persuading the building's owner to sell at a favorable price. The next day, Bernard entered the bank building as the new owner, rendering the bank director speechless. With his newfound role as the landlord of the bank, Bernard had easier access to loans. He used this capital to purchase multiple apartment buildings. After renovating them, he rented them out to black tenants, earning substantial profits. Step by step, they built their massive real estate empire, ultimately owning a total of 177 apartment units. Their success was so significant that even a former U.S. vice president visited Bernard's bank to take commemorative photos. Afterward, Bernard returned to his hometown to visit his roots. He witnessed the difficult lives of the people there, particularly in Texas, where racial discrimination was still prevalent. Even something as basic as using a water fountain could be segregated between black and white individuals. Seeing this heartbreaking situation, Bernard felt deeply saddened. Determined to make a difference in his hometown, Bernard initiated a plan to purchase a local bank. Following the same step-by-step process, Matt led the negotiations while Bernard and Joe worked behind the scenes. This time, they succeeded in acquiring the bank, which enabled them to provide loans to many black individuals in the community, helping them start businesses, buy homes, and improve their lives. However, it didn't take long for the loan manager to notice something unusual. He discreetly investigated Matt and discovered that the masterminds behind the entire operation were black individuals. Feeling offended, he gathered evidence and reported it to the authorities. The next day, an investigation was launched, revealing numerous illegally issued loans to black individuals. As a result, the bank faced legal repercussions and was shut down. Both Bernard and Matt were arrested and brought to court. The majority of the jury was composed of white individuals who condemned Bernard for using the money of white people to provide loans to black people. Bernard's frustration reached its breaking point, and he spoke out, emphasizing that the United States is a land of freedom, and yet only white people seem to be allowed to pursue the American dream, while black individuals like him are consistently treated unfairly. In the end, they were sentenced to 3 years in prison, and all 177 real estate properties were forfeited to the state to be used for public benefit. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed, and Bernard was finally released from prison. He reunited with his wife, and they looked at each other, sharing a serene smile. Together with Eunice, they embarked on a new chapter in the Bahamas, where Matt had thoughtfully purchased 2 beautiful homes for them. This act of generosity was made possible with the money Bernard had entrusted to Matt, a night before his crucial testimony. The years they spent incarcerated were not in vain. Their relentless efforts bore fruit when the United States Congress enacted the Fair Housing Act in 1968. This landmark legislation was a significant stride towards dismantling racial discrimination in the housing market, ensuring that every individual had equal access to housing, regardless of their race. This is the end of the movie. If you enjoy it, please like and subscribe to support my channel. Thank you for watching.